Well, today is March the 4th, 2012.
Yes.
My name is Karen Neurohr, and
Karen,
yes. I'm a librarian at Oklahoma State University Library.
Wonderful.
And I'm here in the home of Mrs. Mary Elizabeth Criswell, whose maiden name was Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here today to interview her about her experience as a student at Oklahoma State University, and then also find out a little bit about her childhood. And thank you for letting me come interview you today. Miss Criswell, I understand that you grew up in Claremore.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about your father.
Well, my father was county judge of Rogers County, and my mother was a homemaker. I have one sister, but she has died. And now what do you want to know?
Well, you told me at the program the other night that when you were a little girl, you met someone famous. And that was Will Rogers.
Yes, yes.
So tell me about that.
I was a little girl, and my father asked me one day, he was at the courthouse, of course, and but he came home and said, "Would you like to meet Will Rogers?" And I said, "Oh, yes, oh, yes." So I did. He took me there to the courthouse, and also a big bouquet of prize peonies that my father raised. And he was very gracious, accepted the flowers and thanked me. And I just felt so good.
About how old were you when that happened?
I wasn't school age yet.
Oh, okay.
So I must have been about 5.
About 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Were there a lot of people around?
But
Were there a lot of people around?
No, there weren't very many people in the courthouse that day.
Oh, oh.
And they didn't put me in jail.
That's good. Well, so what does Will Rogers mean to you?
Well, I have admired him from being a little girl and shaking his hand, and he has been a very someone to look up to. And I was glad to meet him, and I'm glad that I'm still here.
Did you see some of his movies when you were young? Did you see some of the movies that he was in when you were young?
Oh, yes. I did. But I can't tell you now what they were.
Right. So what was it like to go to the movie theater? Did you go to the movies on Saturdays when you were growing up?
Oh, yes. You could go to the Saturday, and it was cheaper for in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And I went quite often to the movies.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to tell me about Will Rogers?
I really am reading the book, and I wasn't aware of some of the things, of course, because I was still little.
Mm-hmm.
But he grew up in Oologah, of course, and I was there many times. My father was the county judge, and he had to be elected every few years, and I would go with him when he campaigned, and he was a very wonderful man, and my mother sadly died early So he raised my little sister by himself. She's 10 years younger, but she isn't alive now. And now what do I need to do?
Well, you said that you went to a lot of the campaigns for your father. So what was that like? Did you go to schools
Well,
or
we just got in the
churches?
car and he would stop at various places in the country. He knew everybody. I think he knew everybody. And we used to have, a long time ago, he came from Georgia, and they had what they called the Georgia picnic every year for the people in Claremore who had come from Georgia. So that was fun, and he took me on several trips that were just wonderful. And my mother was not able to go, so he took me, and we saw a lot of the country. And I had a wonderful childhood
How did you travel for those trips? Was it in a
in a car.
in a car?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does any one particular place stand out to you that you went to with your father?
No, it was just everybody in the in the county,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and generally I'd stay in the car while he went and talked to people, but sometimes I went along,
Mm-hmm.
listen, and I can still remember in those days. I don't know if it's still true. Uh, the Now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, in those days, to get married, the county judge could do that, and a number of people would come to our house to be married,
Oh.
and I would sit there enthralled, and I don't know. Let me see. We went to, honey, right now I can't tell you, but we went to a lot of different places in the United States, not outside. Well, we did go to Mexico, but
Mm-hmm.
and so and when my husband was alive, we traveled a lot, and
Did your father have an education?
he was a long time ago, and he took, what do you call it when you're not, when you don't go to school but you take
Some training
yeah,
course?
yeah, and he did get his certificate to teach school,
Mm-hmm.
which he did for a little while he was a young man, and before he moved to Claremore. So my parents were very dear. And I had one sister
Mm-hmm.
and no other children.
Mm-hmm.
I had kinfolks, though, that lived in Claremore, and so I had a lot of people to go see. Uh, Now, what do you want to know?
Well, I guess let's talk about your time and when you came to Stillwater. What was it that made you decide to come to Oklahoma A&M College?
Well, not very many people, when I started to college, not very many people had a college education. So it was, I think I was the first one, or maybe just the second, of my family who went to college. And my dearest friend was going to go to Oklahoma A&M. And so my dad said, "You're going to go to." And in fact, he borrowed money to send me, but then I got a job in not too long, and so I helped with uh, expenses, and I worked for the dean of his name was Dr. McIntosh, and he was the dean of
Was it education?
what, honey?
Was it education? Dean of education?
No, it wasn't education. It was, honey, I cannot even.
That's okay. Well, when you came to Oklahoma A&M College, did you ride the train to get here, or did your father bring you? And
Well, yes, but they didn't come very often. But it wasn't Fort of Claremore, but in those days we didn't just go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And can you imagine? We had, all of us girls wore high heels to class and every place we went. Well, we had a wonderful time. I had my two best friends came at the same time I did.
Where did you live when you were in college?
In the dormitory.
Do you remember the name of it?
Was
it Willard?
What, honey?
Was it Willard?
No, it was
one of the other ones.
Okay. I can't say.
Thatcher or
no. Gardner Hall.
Gardner Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was one of your friends your roommate?
What, honey?
Was one of your friends your roommate?
Oh yes, we got in the dormitory. We got a kind of a suite, so all three of us could stay in the same place.
Oh.
We had a good time.
Do you remember Dean Stout?
What?
Do you remember Dean Stout?
Eating out?
Dean Julia, the Dean of Women. Do you remember her, the Dean of Women?
Oh.
Miss Dean Stout, Julia Stout.
Laura. No, that was the house mother.
Oh, you had a house mother.
Yeah.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, she was pretty stern, and we had to have be in at a certain time, but she was real sweet to me, so and while I was still in the dormitory, I met my husband.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, Louise and Dorothy and I went to church, and we walked everywhere because we didn't have cars then. Not anybody. Well, maybe some of the faculty, but not very many of the students had. And now, where was I?
When you met your husband.
Oh, yes. Well, one day, Louise and Dorothy and I were walking to church because we walked everywhere. And we went by a certain place near the campus, and I looked over, and there were some boys playing
Basketball?
yeah, and one of them I knew because he was in my class with me. And so he said hello, and I said hello. And that afternoon, I got a telephone call, and he told me what his name was. And he said, what do you plan to do tonight? And I said, well, my roommates and I are going to church. And he said, well, would you let me go to church with you? And that was our start of our whole life.
What church did you go to?
First Christian Church. Still do.
Mm-hmm. So, what did you major in when you were in school?
Education and a minor in English.
Did you always want to be a teacher?
Well, I guess I won't say I really wanted badly to be a teacher, but in those days, when you didn't have very much money, you could go for a semester, and then you could teach a little while, and then go back to school, and then teach a little while. So that's what I decided to do. And that was, being a teacher was one thing that I really thought I would like to do. But I took a lot of I took a lot of I can't say it, honey. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, did you teach? You did teach some then?
No.
Oh, you never did?
Mm-mm.
So, what then did you met your husband while you were in college?
Yes.
When did you get married?
When I graduated.
Was he already out of school?
Yes, he was already.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a wonderful life, darling.
Was your wedding in Stillwater?
No, he came from Chickasha.
Oh, he was from Chickasha.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get married in Stillwater or Claremore?
At Claremore.
In Claremore?
Mm-hmm.
Was your father part?
In fact, we decided that we would just go, and took off work. He worked too, and I worked in the graduate school. And we took off one afternoon on a Friday and drove to Claremore. And let me see, the September in the Rain was one of the new songs at the time, and that came on the radio, and the rain came down at the same time, and it just seemed perfect. And that's what when I got there, my dearest friend's mother called, and she said, I have everything fixed for you. Don't go anywhere else. And she said, just come to my house. And she had everything fixed so beautifully, flowers and everything to eat. and she was like a second mother to me.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was ill so much, and so Louise's mother was my second mother, and she had everything fixed for us. It was so wonderful. I didn't expect it, and I have been so blessed with friends and family. I just can't tell you how wonderful it has been.
When you were working at the college for the dean, what kind of work were you doing?
Secretarial. Mm-hmm.
Was it a very busy job?
What?
Was it very busy?
Well, yes, it was busy because there were two other, besides the dean of the graduate school, who I really worked for. There were two other men in that they were professors, and they also brought me work to do. So I I did very well, I think.
Did you continue working there after you graduated?
No.
Were you involved in some...
Well, I did work a little while after. I'm sorry, honey. I did work a little while after I graduated.
Mhm. I think I saw in the yearbook that your senior year was 1936.
Well, then
Was your senior year 1936? Was that the year that you got married and
senior
you
year,
graduated?
no. I don't.
Okay.
I can't tell you now.
Were you in Kappa Delta Pi?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Well, it was a surprise to me, but I was glad, and well, we just had meetings. That was nothing exciting.
Why was it a surprise to you?
What, honey?
Why was it a surprise to you?
Well, because I didn't expect to to get a a job that easy, and
What other memories do you have of being a student at Oklahoma A&M College? You went to church a lot. What other things did you do?
well, goodness, honey, I can't tell you right now.
Okay. Do you remember any of your professors in particular?
Dr. McIntosh, Mr. Orr,
What do you remember about Dr. McIntosh?
honey.
What do you remember about Dr. McIntosh?
Oh, he was a wonderful man, very kind to me, and if I hesitated when I took dictation, he would stop and wait for me. He was a wonderful man, and his wife I was scared to death of her.
Did she work at the college?
No,
Oh.
but she was pretty stern.
Oh.
And however, she was nice to me and had me to come have dinner at several times, and kind of took me under her wing.
After you and Mr. Criswell were married, you made your home in Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
Then,
And he was in the Stillwater National Bank.
Mm-hmm.
He was vice president.
And was he drafted to go to the war after you were married?
What, honey?
Did your husband go to the war after you were married?
He didn't get in the war itself, but he was called up because he was ROTC, and he was sent to Bermuda. And there was a lot of possibility for him to have been in danger, but they never did come there, and he felt that he hadn't done his part, but he was 3 years away from me, and I had a little girl, and I got a letter every day, and I wrote a letter every day for 3 years.
Do you still have your letters?
No. One night we were sitting by our fireplace. It wasn't this house, but we were sitting by the fireplace, and what was that?
The letters, the letters that you wrote.
Oh yes, and I had saved everyone, and he had saved everyone, but this was when the war was over and he was home, and he said, "Let's burn all of these in the fireplace." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because it's just between you and me." And we did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I haven't got them now.
I understand that you like poetry a lot.
Oh yes, I've written some too.
You have?
I love poetry.
Tell me about that.
Well, there's nothing to tell except that I just always, from the time I started school, I'd memorized all the poetry in the books, and I still love it, and I have written some myself. So.
Did you collect poems that you liked?
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh
did?
yes, I have a book.
So what is one of your favorite poems?
Well, I've got it written down in that book.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Do you still write poetry?
Well,
Do you still write poetry?
not anymore.
I understand that you were a charter member of a book club.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was in that time. You had to. It was a whole lot. Everybody in all of the things were together. Well, our group decided that we wanted to be by ourselves, and we were Potpourri Book Club. And oh, the friends I had in that, it was wonderful. I still have a few living, not many, but anyway.
Did that book club start right after you were married?
Uh-huh.
So 1930, what,
Yes,
36 or 37? Do you remember what year that was?
What, honey?
Do you remember what year the book club started?
I don't.
No?
But I still belong to a book club.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And is
Potpourri
it
Book
the
Club.
Potpourri Book Club? How often did you meet?
Once a month.
What were your meetings like?
What, honey?
What were your meetings like? Can you
Well, we
describe
just
them?
all got together and we visited for a while, and then somebody did a book review,
Mm-hmm.
and then we discussed it. And the next time it was someone else's turn, and so on. It was fun.
Did you meet in each other's homes?
Yes, yes, we did.
Did you have dessert or food, or
What, honey?
did you have coffee or dessert
Oh, we had
or food?
desserts.
You did?
Yes,
And where were your children when you had your book club meetings?
they were home.
They were home.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, they all graduated, and I'm still in the book club.
That sounds like.
Everybody did a review of a book,
Mm-hmm.
and some book clubs had somebody do it all the time, but we took turns.
Do you think that was better?
What, honey?
Do you think that was better to have people
Oh,
take
yes.
turns?
Mm-hmm. Everybody had something different. One, Lou Hillier even gave a book review on cooking, on a cookbook. And everybody had different interests, and so it made it very interesting to hear everybody. I'm still a member of a book club.
That's wonderful. Did you go to the public library to get your books?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about what you remember about the public library from those days.
Well, the library was just second place for me, because I love to go to the library, and I still do.
When you were going to school at Oklahoma A&M College, do you remember the library from college?
Uh-huh, yes.
What was it like?
Well, it was, I'm trying to think where it was, where, well, I can't, honey. I'm
That's okay.
sorry.
Did women wear pants?
What, honey?
Did women wear pants when you were in college?
Did they what?
Did they wear pants?
No, oh no. We wore high heels and dressed up. That's why I have bunions.
Oh. You said that your husband when you met him, he called you on the telephone.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the telephone?
There was one place where not anybody lived in it. There were rooms everywhere, but then there was a big room where you could meet and have company and so on. And so, well,
Was the telephone in the big room?
Yeah, oh yes, the telephone was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody would answer it, and then they'd yell down the halls like Mary or Joan, and then you'd go to the telephone.
Oh.
Just one.
Oh. Let's see. Your Potpourri Book Club.
Mm-hmm.
Who were some of the members of the Potpourri Book Club?
Okay. Mary V. Rippey. You remember Dr. Rippey?
I didn't live here then.
Oh, okay. Well, Mary V. Rippey, Lou Hillier, Ethel Cudd, I'm sorry, honey.
That's okay.
I should have written all of this down, but I didn't know what you were going to ask.
Oh, this is fine. I think you told me Thursday that you have written your memoirs. You have written out your memoirs.
I'm doing it.
You're doing that now.
Mhm.
Are you enjoying that?
What, honey?
Are you enjoying that?
Am I like,
Yes. Do you enjoy writing?
at one time I thought that I would like to be a writer. So I have written a lot. And I've written poetry, and I read everything I can get my hands on.
When did your husband propose to you?
When did he propose?
Yes.
Well, it was very soon after I graduated. He was already, well, we were going to go. He had a car, a real nice car, and we decided to go to see my dad. And on the way in the car, he asked me. And of course I said yes.
Did you think he was going to ask you to marry him?
Oh, I thought so all the time.
You did?
Yes.
Then when you went to see your father, was that when he talked to your father about marrying you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, my husband went, like I told you, was in the military. And so he was gone 3 years, almost 3 years from home.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lonely time.
Tell me what it was like when he came back.
Oh, it was wonderful, honey. I can't explain it. It was so wonderful because some people didn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't imagine the letters that we both wrote. It was a wonder. I've got pictures of him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this was a picture that Gay
Yes.
had.
That was in college.
That was in college.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
We were both dressed up.
You were dressed up. Do you remember what you were dressed up for in this picture?
Honey,
Do you remember why you were dressed up?
why?
Yes. Where were you going?
Let me see. Oh, it's when I graduated.
Oh.
Don't you think he's handsome?
Yes, and you're beautiful. That's a very pretty dress. Did you sew your own clothes?
Oh, I sewed. I didn't make that one, but I sewed almost all my clothes and all my children's clothes.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Who taught?
I love to sew.
You do? Mm-hmm. Who taught you to sew?
What, honey?
Did you learn to sew in school? Did you learn how to sew when you were in school?
Oh, no, I learned how when I was a little tiny girl.
Oh.
Oh, I can't remember when I didn't sew.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I understand that you also paint.
Yes, that's one of mine. This is one of mine. All of those up there are mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a lot in the rest of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I love to paint. It's recreation to me. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done any for a long time right now, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do some more.
There's some embroidery pictures on your wall
Well,
behind the couch.
during the war, when my husband was gone and I couldn't sleep at night and had to put the children to bed, I had to have something to do. So I did these two, the big ones
Mm-hmm.
then. And those down there, the Japanese, I can't think of the name now, fabric company had a contest, and I just entered the contest, and I didn't get first place, but I got honorable mention,
Oh, that's wonderful.
and I have pictures everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I love to paint. The last few years, I just do watercolors
Oh.
because oils got to where they were too strong.
Mm-hmm.
The smell.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did watercolors. I don't know where my daughter. She must have gone to sleep.
Oh, you think so? Did you ever meet President Bennett when you were in college?
Yes, I met him. Yes.
What do you remember about him?
Well, he was just president. I just knew him. That was all.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any favorite classes when you were in
English
college?
always. I took every English class I could.
Did you have a favorite professor of English? Who was your favorite English professor?
That's hard to. I can see him, but I can't tell you his name. He was a very gaunt-looking man, tall and thin, but I can't think of his name right now. But he was a very good teacher.
What did you like about the way that he taught?
What, honey?
What did you like about the way that he taught? How was his teaching style? What was good about his teaching?
About what, honey?
About his teaching?
His teaching?
Yes. How was his teaching good?
Well, I guess because I just like the subject so much.
Oh. Did you ever hear about a poet from Oklahoma named Wilma Elizabeth McDaniel?
What, honey?
Did you ever hear about a poet who was from Oklahoma and her name was Wilma Elizabeth McDaniel?
No, I don't remember that name.
Okay. Okay.
Why?
Well, she left Oklahoma in 1936 and went to California, but she wrote a lot of poems about Oklahoma.
Oh,
Yes. Okay, is there anything else that you would like to share for the interview today?
Honey, I think you've asked me just about everything.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you again and appreciate the time.
Oh, I appreciate your coming, honey. And come and just visit sometime.
Well, thank you. I would enjoy doing that.
I know you're busy.
Well, we have, maybe you can come to another one of the Will Rogers programs
Uh-huh.
that we have coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Since we talked about the pictures, I think I will get those in the picture. Now, this is a scrapbook here that Gabe got out. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
These.
Yes.
This was my best friend, Louise. This was a poem I wrote. This was another one I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
This was my husband. This is me. And this is another friend in college and me. And, oh, do you remember Swims? Okay.
I've heard about
Okay.
Swim.
This was Mr. Swim. He just took us under his wings, and that was me and my cousin, my roommate. I can't tell you who those were, too little. And some of them have faded. Here I am, and a whole lot of my friends. And this is the same that bigger picture is.
Would you like to read those poems? Would you like to read those poems?
Well, do you want me to?
I think that would be wonderful.
This is in class on a summer afternoon. So dull are books, so flat are maps, important in their way perhaps, but prisoning to restive souls on summer days when there are undulating hills and sparkling streams where water spills into the cool blue pools incessantly, when there are cotton clouds afloat and waxen leaves to make a boat to send upon the truant streams adventuring, so much to see, so much to do, so many bypaths to pursue, from end of earth to end of earth before I die. That was that one. And this is Silhouettes. Night slips quickly over the campus, above Old Central, silhouetted against a sky of blue-green, paling as it nears the horizon, quivers the first crystalline star. Ebon silhouette of trees against a silver sky, lacy willows black against a moon that's rising high, liquid golden darts within the water's onyx deep, zigzagging glints, shimmering tints, like needle points that dance to meet the moon.
Those are nice.
Well,
Did you write those when you were in college?
mm-hmm.
You did.
Mm-hmm. Well, this book is full of lots of different memories.
Mm-hmm.
My grandchildren and everybody.
Okay.
Honey, I don't think I have done a very good job.
Yes, I think it's been a nice interview. I do. I appreciate that.
But I have had so many interests, painting, and we even did painting china for a long time. That's not as much fun as a picture. But I've done all kinds of artwork. I was in the art guild for a long time,
Oh.
and I haven't gone though in a long time. It's too much for me to do that. But anyway, I have been so blessed, honey. So blessed. I am so thankful for everything that has happened to me. Even the bad things aren't too bad.
What advice would you give to people today?
But honey,
What advice would you give to people today? What kind of advice?
to do what you want to do best. And don't forget the things that you love, and just keep on doing them. Like whatever's your interest.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've been able to do that with your life.
I have, honey. Oh, I've been so fortunate. Just, I have a picture I did a quilt one time. I did a lot of quilting several years ago, and I got a golden thimble award from the newspaper in Tulsa, no, Oklahoma City, and had pictures of part of what I had done. I love to sew, and I didn't want patterns. I did my daughter's wedding dress,
Oh.
and I can't anymore. My hands don't work that well, but I have had so many interests and so many wonderful things happen, honey. I hope that you're just as happy as I am.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you again for the interview. I'll go ahead and turn these off.
You're
Okay.
welcome, honey.